Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Charlotte and today I'm in Singapore. So for this month's wrap up I am coming to you from the Botanic Gardens in Singapore, which are lovely, and I have 7 books to wrap up for you today from the month of March. They averaged, finally, a rating of 4 stars on Storygraph, which, as those of you who watched my 2023 resolutions video know, my aim this year is to have my overall star rating for the year averaging out at 4.0 plus on Storygraph. So adding to that by having a month of March that averaged out at a 4-star rating, I am really pleased. I really enjoy stats, so I'm just going to give you a quick stat update. The 3 stats that I keep track of are my percentage of translated reads, and this month in March that number was at 43%, which was very similar to last month's stat, and puts my overall yearly percentage to date at 36% translated fiction. So I am really pleased with that. That is over a third, and so for the year, and almost half for the month, and that obviously is influenced a lot by the fact that I've been reading for the International Booker in March, so I am really pleased with that score. The next stat that I like to keep an eye on is the percentage of new to me authors that I'm reading. This actually for March was 100% of the books that I read were by authors that I'd never read a book by before, which is odd. I normally read at least 1 or 2 books every month from authors that I've already read a book by. So I think this is also to do with the fact that it was international prize reading and women's prize reading, and so a lot of the books I hadn't heard of, and so I hadn't come across the authors, and so I think that I think prize season plays a big factor into that statistic, because for the year, because in comparison to the overall yearly percentage to date for percentage of new to me authors, that is currently standing at 72%, so a lot lower than the 100% that I did this month. And then the final stat that I like to keep an eye on is the gender balance in the authors. So am I reading, so if, for example, in 2022 I read predominantly female authors, and that's fine because I guess I am a female, and so maybe they are writing books that resonate more strongly with me. But I think out of the top 10 books of 2022, almost half of them were written by male authors. So actually when I do read male authors, they are overrepresented proportionally in my best books of the year. So my aim for this year was to try and even up that balance a little bit. Not 50-50, but just even it up a little bit. So the balance that I read for March was 57% male authors, which again I think is largely to do with the International Booker, as well as a few other things. But in comparison to last month's stat, where I only read 25% books by male authors in February, to then make it such a kind of drastic change to 57%, but that does make my overall yearly average to date for 41% male author, so 59% female, and that is the kind of balance I'm looking for. 60-40 is great, even 30-70 is fine, but just better than it did last year, which I think was something like 80-20 or something quite disproportionate. So let's get into the books now then. The stats are finished, we're into books. So the first book I read was A Fig for All the Devils, and I gave this 4 stars. This is light horror, feeding into the miserable vibes, and I actually am participating in Scott and Gemma's miserable vibes video. So I have kind of recommended a miserable vibes book for them, not this one but another one. So if you check out their video, which I think is being posted next week, you will see my recommendation and a bunch of other YouTubers' book recommendations as part of their kind of theme, and they are also doing, sorry this is a bit of a tangent, but they are also doing kind of reading Hardy together. So we're doing Jude the Obscure as the kind of group readathon, and that's the one I'm going to be joining in with because I started Jude the Obscure and Return of the Native, kind of trying a chapter of both this time last year, and I put both of them down because I just wasn't really in that mood. I wanted to be reading other stuff, and so I think potentially doing this as a group read and having the chat going on at the same time about the book, I'm really excited to participate in that. So head on over to Scott and Gemma's channel if you want to join in as well. But that's what I will be doing in May. This kind of A Fig for All the Devils plays nicely into that light horror miserable theme. This is about a young boy who has lost his dad, and the Grim Reaper appears to him one day and basically wants to mentor him to become the next Grim Reaper. He's done this job for 1,000 years and he's looking to kind of die and pass on the torch to another person. And he has chosen this boy, so he gives him a candle, and when the boy wants to become the Grim Reaper, he is to light the candle and kill somebody at the same time. And that will complete his transition. At the same time, he's growing up in quite a troubled household with his single mum plus her kind of abusive new boyfriend, who wants to basically send the kid off to a kind of youth correctional centre, even though he's a perfectly lovely boy. He just wants him out of the way, basically. And so it's very sad. Obviously, we've got this little boy who's very innocent and vulnerable at the centre. And so I don't think you can't help but empathise and really care about what's going to happen to him. So this is a great one. Really pleased that I started off the month with this. Next I went to Reamble, which I saw on Ben's channel, and then I found out that it was on Scribd. So I just sort of picked it up. It's quite short, it's about 150 pages. And I gave this also 4 stars, just because the writing was fantastic. I really, the writing is right up my street. If you like the writing of Jessica Andrews, it is that. It's just absolutely beautiful. I'm not really sure how else to describe it really, but you could get a sample for yourself and see, because it also has recipes in it as well. So this is about a young girl who is black and growing up in some sort of post-colonial island. So I can't quite remember the name of the island, but it's not fictional, it is a real island, and it's kind of about her as a young child growing up being very present of her skin tone and what that means in terms of how other people in society look at her, and the fact that her family work for a white family on their property. And so yeah, it's looking at that. It's looking at a coming of age love story, although it's not really a whole lot of love in it, but you kind of that is also going on, and it didn't quite wow me because it felt a bit naive at times. It felt a bit trauma porn type of thing, especially around this very young girl's relationship, if you can call it that. It's not a relationship, it's, you know, it's her first idea of love, and it's not exactly healthy. So yeah, it seems not exploitative, but certainly probably too naive, I would say, to be enjoyable. I feel like if this girl was a real person, she would potentially have developed a bit more maturity for her age, because she's not kind of 10, she's a teenager. So, you know, I just felt some of the naivety thickly laid on. But apart from that, I mean, as I say, the writing was gorgeous alone. I'm just being very nitpicky with the plot, because it is 4 stars. I don't give out 4 stars just willy-nilly. Like, it is actually it's a very solid and enjoyable read. The next book on this list is Age of Vice, and this was in my most anticipated 2023 releases video, and it will also be featured in a reading vlog that I've got coming up, where I'm reading newly published women's fiction that aren't featured on the Women's Prize long list. And so you will hear my thoughts more extensively on this book in that reading vlog. So we are back after a short recess because my phone was feeling the Singaporean heat and shut itself off. It needed a 5-minute cool down, and so we are back to finish the end of this wrap-up video. So I was starting to talk about Age of Vice. I won't go into too much detail about this book because, as I say, it will be spoken about at length in my Reading New Women's Fiction reading vlog. But needless to say, I rated this book 5 stars, and so it was absolutely phenomenal. Set in India, following a kind of manservant of a very wealthy Wadia family man, and also following the perspective of the girlfriend of said Wadia man. The Wadia family are a kind of criminal syndicate type of family in India that operate within India, and so it follows the manservant's perspective for the first third, the girlfriend of the kind of very influential rich man for the second third, and then the final third kind of is dealing with all three, but predominantly from the Sunny Wadia, that's his name, so Sunny Wadia's perspective. And it was absolutely gripping. I knew from the first page, as I do with so many 5-star reads of mine, I knew from the first couple of pages that this was going to be a wow book. It is almost thriller-like in its pacing, in that you are kind of thrown into this world and you're hooked from the offset because you start at the end. So a bit like in The Secret History, where we start with the murder and then go back and find out how. In this, we start off with the manservant, whose name is AJ, I believe, if I remember correctly, because it has been several weeks. AJ, who's in prison, and he's basically retaliated to being beaten up. He gets pulled into the principal's office, for lack of a better word, and thinks, oh god, I'm going to be punished for this, and instead is told, I'm so sorry, we didn't realise you were a Wadia man. Here is, you know, an excessive amount of luxuries for a prison. And we're like, okay, so this isn't just some average Joe, this is somebody that, right, there's a backstory here, what is going on with this man? And so you're immediately hooked in by that, and then we go back in time to him as a child, all the way up through his life. This is around between 500 and 600 pages long, so divide that into 3, you're spending 200 pages immersed in one character, so you do actually end up knowing a lot about them, which is really nice. And overall was just, it was on my 2023 most anticipated releases, and it did not disappoint. It was absolutely excellent. I think from my 2023 anticipated releases video, it's been my first 5-star read from that selection of books, and so I couldn't be happier. The next 2 books were in my International Booker Prize reading vlog episode 1, and these are Pyre and Whale, one of which I rated 5 stars and one of which I rated 2.5 stars. So you can go and check out that video to hear my extensive thoughts on both of these. I don't want to repeat myself and go into them both here, but also just to preface that by saying it is a reading vlog, and so I do talk about my progress as I go through the book, more specifically with Whale, and so there are spoilers in that because I am kind of giving you my updates as I'm reading. So if you are planning on reading Whale, just be aware. But in terms of a quick, brief snippet of my thoughts here, Pyre I thought was very well written. I can see why it's been longlisted. It didn't feel like a traditional novel necessarily, as Leila Samani highlighted, who is the head judge of the Booker, if you didn't know, who highlighted that she had to change her opinion on what a novel it was in reading this prize, because Time Shelter changed her opinion on it, Standing Heavy, Pyre, these are all very non-traditional ways of storytelling because they're coming from other parts of the world where stories are told differently, and so the prize has to adapt to that. And so that's what I would say about Pyre, but again, more thoughts in my vlog. And then for Whale, this was a total surprise. I was not expecting to love this, and I absolutely loved it. It is magical realist, it is intergenerational family saga, which I absolutely love. It's my favourite thing to read. It's historical fiction. We're following a female protagonist. Overall, it was just magical, literally, and also how it read. It is absolutely fantastic storytelling, absolute masterful craftsmanship in terms of how you put a story together. This is traditional storytelling in comparison to Pyre and Standing Heavy and whatnot. This is, you know, there's a start and a finish, and it's character-based plot, and we very much follow and root and invest in that character. So if that sounds like your sort of thing, if you're a similar reader to me, then you will probably like Whale. But there are trigger warnings for Whale that have been discussed at length in reviews that I've seen on Goodreads and Storygraph, so feel free to check out the trigger warning kind of alerts for all of the books really, but specifically for Whale, as that's what I'm talking about today. And then the next book that I read is Standing Heavy, which I've kind of briefly referenced here. This again is non-traditional storytelling. I gave this 3 stars, and I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed the first 10%, where we're kind of involved, we're kind of immersed straight into the world of security guard application process, which was really cool. And then aside from that, we kind of deep dive into a series of vignettes, and the book is predominantly told through vignettes, and it is discussing, it's less narrative and character following, and it's more the author's ideas and musings on colonialism, capitalism, and the consumerism that comes with capitalism, and that sort of thing really, which is interesting. And I do love vignettes, so it really did suit the type of writing that I enjoy, but it was just, I gave it 3 because it lacked the specialness that I need for it to be rating higher than that. And then the final book is An Absolute Caulker. This I picked up because Hannah May, whose channel I absolutely adore, I think she has she really articulates herself so well, and the books that she highlights are new and fresh and are interesting, so memoir and fiction and non-fiction. So if you're not following her, I thoroughly recommend her. She's an absolute delight. And so this was in her top books of 2022, and so I picked this up on Kindle. And this is a very harrowing memoir. This is not for the faint-hearted. Some elements of this made me feel sick, set my nervous system off. So, you know, kind of when you go over a hill or on a roller coaster and you have that sort of butterfly, fluttery feeling, that is your nervous system, and it's that fight or flight fear response really. And I was feeling that. I was having to like breathe reading certain chunks of this book, because it is just you can imagine a book that's called When I Hit You, and the fact that it's about domestic violence, coupled with the effect it had on me, and you can just imagine the sort of content and scenes and graphic nature to that book. So check out all the trigger warnings please before going into this. I would almost not recommend it, like just find it for yourself if you want to, but I wouldn't say yes, you should read this book, because it leaves you feeling kind of cold and like drained of happiness. So it's set in India, and this woman has gotten married to a guy who is very left-wing, revolutionary, like Che Guevara is like his hero, and he wants to lead the revolution and like he wants her to read the Communist Manifesto, and he's into like Leninism, Maoism, I think is what it's the kind of dual philosophy that he is engaged with. So this is tough. So but I gave this 4.5 stars. The writing is insane, it's so good. It is funny in the start because this woman is discussing her mother and her mother's attitude to, oh gosh, so yeah, it's very funny. I forget exactly what the concept was, but it was laugh out loud funny, until obviously this woman gets and this woman's a writer, and so her husband slowly takes away control of her email and her work and all this sort of thing, and this happens very early on, so I'm not going to really say anything about what happens. But a book called When I Hit You and about domestic abuse, I kind of feel like you can't really spoil that too much. You know what's going to happen, really. The only thing left for me to do then is to put up on the screen my runner-up book of the month, which is Age of Vice, and my winner therefore of this month, going into the March slot for the year to battle it out as contender for the overall best book of Charlotte's year, is Whale. And as you can see from the flowchart, out of these three, January, February, March, the two going through to kind of the quarter final, I guess, is LiQWYD and Whale, and then out of those two, LiQWYD is going on to the, let's say, the semi-finals. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you had a lovely reading month in March. This is certainly one of my best reading months of the year so far, certainly better than February, so I'm on the way up. My star rating is on the way up and I am thrilled. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day here in the Botanic Gardens of Singapore, and I really hope you're enjoying your day. I'll see you very soon in my next video, guys. Bye, thanks for watching.